Michael Blau. An interesting subject just occurred to me. Auditor worksheets. This was one of the most challenging areas for me as a student auditor, making an accurate record of what occurred during an auditing session. Hubbard said not to practice stenographic auditing, to take down every word the PC says. He wanted his auditors to limit the contents of worksheets to essential information, but to be accurate, I found it difficult to avoid writing down virtually everything my PC said in response to the auditing questions. With modern education apparently abandoning instruction in the cursive form of handwriting, what do you see as the future of auditor training? Will Scientology become obligated to teach cursive to all auditors? Will a form of rapid printing become a new skill and requirement for auditors? Might electronic worksheet creation finally become a tool invented to support auditing, a tool arguably more useful than the e-meter itself? Michael, thank you very much for this question. It brings to mind so many memories and things from my Scientology time that I thought we might comment on here. And I did shorten down your question. You had mentioned a couple other things, which I'll try to go over here in answering your question for the general audience. First off, this is the subject of what the auditors in a Scientology counseling auditing session, we know they write stuff down. We talk about it all the time. They have folders and papers and lots of files on all Scientologists. They keep copies of letters they send you. They keep copies of all the invoices from your services. They keep copies of your success stories. But they also keep worksheets of every single auditing session, almost every single, and 99.9% of all auditing sessions that are delivered have worksheets of some kind being kept because it's the record that the session happened. And so let's talk about these. I thought it would be fun, and Michael, your question is perfectly timed, to talk about this in some detail. Now, in my future is the creation of this production of this e-meter video that I'm, talking about for literally years, and I do get that it's a sore spot for people. I'm going to finish my uni studies and I'm going to get that video done. That's my plan, and it is going to happen. But part of that video will be showing what these worksheets actually look like. And they're part of the process of using the meter, and that's why I'll have that in there. But I'll describe right now what this is about to give you guys some more information about it that you might find kind of interesting. What are they keeping? It's not just notes about what the person is saying. The auditor actually has to keep track of a lot more than just that. And it actually is a skill that is practiced and drilled over and over again in Scientology classrooms to teach auditors how to keep good worksheets. The worksheets have to be legible, and often they are not. But they're supposed to be, they need to be, because it's not just the auditor who's in the session writing stuff down who's going to read it. The worksheets, for you guys who have followed my channel for a while, you know that the auditing sessions go to a case supervisor, another person. Once the session's done, the folder, everything gets packaged up, and the folder goes to the case supervisor who, opens it up, reads the worksheets, reads through every other report in the folder, and then decides what the next step is for this pre-clear. That's how Scientology auditing is kind of administered. So the worksheets are kind of important because the auditor doesn't go and tell the case supervisor what happened. It's all supposed to be in the worksheets. So what's in there? Well, it's a 2-column legal size piece of paper. You write the number on top and you write a line down the middle, and you just start keeping track of what's going on. You are writing down notes about what the person is saying. You're also writing down notes about what the e-meter is doing. If there is a response or a reaction on the meter to the questions or to what the person is saying even, you're supposed to write those reactions down on the worksheets too. You also note every time you're noting these kind of reactions or notes, the time that it happened. So you have a running record minute by minute of what's going on in the session, and the case supervisor and other people who see these in the future can kind of see how the session went and how it was paced. You will note down the other indications from the meter besides just what the needle is doing on the dial. You'll also note the tone arm reaction. In other words, how much it's supposed to be a measure of how deep into the incidents the pre-clear is. The person who's getting auditing is called a pre-clear. And so if you're really heavy, deep down, a million years ago, and it's that there's a dial on the meter that kind of moves up and it's a reflection of resistance and to the flow of electronic, the electronic flow going through the person's body that the meter is actually registering. So that's something that you note down. That's called the TA, or tone arm position. You will also note down at the beginning of the session some other things about what the meter is, how it looks, and how it was set up. You will also have other forms and things come in during the auditing, like a correction list, which is a set of prepared questions to ask the pre-clear on the meter, and note the reactions. So that's another form, and you would write the needle reactions on the form, but then if one of them responds and you're going to take it up with the pre-clear, let's say you're reading this list of questions, were you upset about something? No response. Did you get into an accident, or something, right? And the meter responds. And so maybe that's question number 7 on the form. So the auditor puts the form aside and picks up the worksheets, writes down question 7, notes the response, and then looks up at the pre-clear and says, okay, did you get into an accident? And the guy goes, oh yeah, blah, 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 and proceeds to write down on the worksheets what's going on. So it's like I said, it's this running record. The auditors are trained to not write down every single word the person says. As you mentioned, Mike, in your question, that would be called stenographic auditing. And nobody's really interested in every single word the guy said. They want the gist of it. They want to know and the specifics are more important in the checking, the security checking, the interrogatories, than they are in the general course of auditing. You don't necessarily, in other words, if you're running a chain, a series of Dianetics, incidents where you've got pain and unconsciousness and the person is like having an accident, a brick's fallen on his head. So you start with an incident where the guy had a brick fall on his head and you note down brick on his head, 7th grade, was in school, very painful. And this guy could be going on at a mad rate about all the details of the incident, but you're just noting down general, the general summary idea of what happened. Because you're also trying to listen, you're also trying to look at the guy. Most of this writing is done without looking at the paper. You're that practiced on it that you can write without necessarily having to look down very often. Because you're supposed to have your attention on the person in front of you and on the e-meter in front of you. And you cannot ever take your eyes away so that you don't see what the meter is doing, even if it's out of the corner of your eye. And there are drills and practice exercises that Scientologists do and when they're training with a meter to be able to read it, even if they're looking over here or something like that, you see. So there's a lot of attention on that in an auditing session as far as the auditor is concerned. And then let's see, you mentioned the cursive handwriting. So Hubbard said in one of the bulletins about keeping notes for a session that he said that I think he got a little fed up with people telling him how hard it was to write down the worksheets. And he was like, hey, look, guys, in the 1800s, there were secretaries who were able to write, I think what he said was glowing copper plate writing as fast as a person could talk. These secretaries were trained to write this way. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's what Hubbard claimed. And he was making the point to say, if they could keep perfect copper plate, beautiful cursive handwriting fast as a guy is talking, then the least you guys can do is keep some legible notes of the auditing session that you just did. You dorks, it was kind of that attitude. So Hubbard wanted, good handwriting. However, I, for example, have horrible handwriting, horrible cursive. I've always been bad at it. So I block printed my writing when I was doing worksheets. It was not cursive. It was just block printing. So you can do that. You can get away with that as long as it's legible and as long as you're keeping up with the pre-clear and you're not distracting him. You would never, in an auditing session, no matter how much the guy is sitting there going on at a mad rate, you would never try, you would really go out of your way as an auditor to not interrupt him and not be like, okay, wait a minute, what was that? Okay, hang on, what? Okay, what? That would be really, really, really bad. Auditors would get chastised and corrected for that. You don't distract the pre-clear that way in a session. Okay, so you got to have all your attention on the auditing commands because those are the ones that are brainwashing you, right? So you don't want to be distracted by the auditor. But what this also reminded me of, and Michael, which I thought you might find amusing, was I used to openly talk about how there should be a voice to electronic, digital way to record worksheets, because we are now in the era, and I was talking about this like in the early, I think I was talking about this as early as the 1990s. I mean, it was like, because there was Dragon Speaking. It was a voice dictation software that had just come out, and I was like, well, damn, if we can do this, then what if we did this in an auditing session? And what if what if there was a device that would record what was being said and transcribing it in the session so that the auditor didn't have to worry about that part of the worksheets and they could just keep notes, for themselves of what was going on. This, of course, is counter to what Hubbard said as far as how auditing should be done, because Hubbard came up in a time when those kind of things didn't exist and wouldn't exist. There wouldn't even be necessarily the concept of it. So Scientologists have not turned over or changed over to a voice to text or, voice to digital recording medium to use for the auditing sessions, even though it would be more accurate and it would be more, or at least it could be, especially as voice technology has really, really improved over the decades. I mean, it's impressive how good, the technology is now. It still makes some pretty big blunders sometimes, but you can teach it too. Once you get the software and a package and a little AI aspect of it, then you can teach the software how to recognize your voice and kind of, get better tuned into how you talk. So you could get some pretty interesting, pretty accurate, rather, worksheets just from the digital recording. Well, they don't do that, but they do audio record many, many, many of the auditing sessions, or they will video record with audio the auditing sessions now. But they don't do that to record the content of the session for posterity so that they keep it in the folder. They videotape or record onto CDs or DVDs now in order to review and inspect the auditing, or, of course, for sensitive matters, security checking, blackmail sort of thing. They will record celebrities. Like every celebrity session, I believe, is recorded as a matter of policy. I believe there are probably certain VIPs who get auditing. Rich people, let's say the whales, for example, when they go to Flag, I'm pretty sure their auditing would be recorded on video as a matter of course. But I can't be 100% sure about that. They have that look-in system that they use to do the recording, where you get a split screen of what's on the e-meter and what the session looks like, kind of from the side or from the back. So they're pretty. They've gotten a little sophisticated with this in terms of what they want to do and can do without violating what Hubbard said to do. But Hubbard was very clear that auditors are to keep worksheets, and those worksheets are to go in the folders, and the folders are what go back and forth to the case supervisor. So that system's going to stay in place until David Miscavige basically balls up to change it. And then when he does, he'll come up with whatever excuse he wants to change it. But for now, they're not doing that. They're sticking with the old style system. And at the end of the day, the digital to voice tech is still not perfect. And that would probably be the justification for why they wouldn't do it, because you don't want inaccuracies as best as you can prevent them when the information is going, is being recorded. Because you want, because it might well be that the folder is pulled in 6 months or a year, and that session is reviewed. And if there's inaccuracies in what the guy said, then you're going to mess up the instructions of what to do about it. And that would be a real concern that they would have. That's not a fake concern. They would really be worried about that. So that's probably why they, even to this day, one of the reasons why they haven't implemented that would be that practical reason too. So anyway, I thought you guys might find that kind of interesting. And there you go.